Okay, cool. Well, then let's
Yay.
do it.
Alrighty. Queer joy.
That's it. That's the whole episode.
That's the episode. Bye.
You're welcome.
Welcome back to Unpacking the Closet, the Queer Joy editions. I'm Geri.
And I'm Caitlin. This season, we're exploring how queer joy shows up, not just in moments of fun, but as something sacred, political, and deeply human.
And today we're talking about joy as protest, the idea that celebration itself can be an act of resistance, that loving, laughing, and dancing can be revolutionary.
So excited to get into it. And it is not a coincidence that this episode is coming out on November 4th. We very much intentionally scheduled it this way because we're hoping that maybe this will motivate you to get out there and use your voice and vote for the future that you're wanting to see. So wanted to add that in there. Please go vote. Please
in California,
specifically.
Specifically in California, vote.
Very important. I'm telling you.
Gosh, yeah, seriously. So Pride it started as a protest. It started as resistance, not kind of like the rainbow capitalism that we see today.
We're looking at you, Target.
Right, like a Target, which we don't support anymore.
No.
For many reasons. All their diversity stuff, their diversity and inclusion out. So there's that. Don't buy your trans gear from Target.
Yeah, please don't.
End of podcast. I'm just kidding.
Again, done.
But technically, the movement is known to start with Stonewall in 1969, which I think most folks have heard about.
Honestly, that's the one I had only heard about until we decided to do this episode. And you did this research and put this on here. And I was like, oh, so yeah, this was a whole learning thing for me. So I'm excited for you to talk about it.
Yeah. So we know about Stonewall with Marsha P. and Sylvia Rivera and honoring how trans women are central to resistance in New York. If you haven't been to the Stonewall Inn, it still exists in New York City. There's a little plaza. There has been some takedown of the tea in the area done not by Stonewall or any of the community members there. But as queer folks know, and hopefully other folks know, it was started as a protest because police sparked brutality at Stonewall Inn, which again is still a bar. What people don't know, and this is for our Angelinos here, is that there was a riot at the Black Cat that is located currently in Silver Lake, is no longer considered a queer bar, but used to be, and I believe it used to be a lesbian bar, which it's no longer anymore. But 2 years beforehand, on January 1st, 1967, so New Year's, the Black Cat Tavern in Silver Lake was raided by the police as well. And they were beating and arresting people for kissing, because at the time in 1967, a same-sex kiss was still considered like lewd conduct under California law. Of course, the violence outbroke very similarly to Stonewall, and there was a lot of outrage, and it was a protest of over 200 people outside the bar on February 11th, 1967. And it's one of the first organized LGBTQ plus demonstrations in U.S. history.
Yeah. And this part, it was actually really interesting to me while we were reading up for this episode. I didn't know that Pride stood for more than just having pride in yourself, right? So like there's I'm considered a baby gay, so there's still things I'm learning, right? So,
I actually didn't know this either.
So interesting. So the people who organized the demonstration were members of a very early queer rights group called Pride, which stood for Personal Rights in Defense and Education, which I think is really cool. Like and also kind of sad when you think about it, that those are still things that we're trying to defend today. But
sadly.
But it's really good to know where things come from and some of our lost history, that like we've just gotten used to this acronym and you don't really think of what it stood for when it first came about. And so I thought that was really interesting. And then the other group that helped organize was the Southern California Council on Religion and the Homophile.
I mean, again, these are like outdated terms, but this is what they were using back then. Yeah.
But yeah, so this protest as Jerrilyn said, came 2 years before Stonewall, and it definitely helped lay the groundwork for activist networks that would later fuel the national movement that we see. And
It seems like there were some men that were arrested at the Black Cat and were
mhm,
convicted of lewd conduct. Unfortunately, they unsuccessfully appealed all the way to the Supreme Court at the time. But the Black Cat has inspired queer organizing along the West Coast, influencing publications like The Advocate that began in
also
LA
didn't know
years later.
that. That's I know, I read that and I was like, "Wow." Crazy. It's just crazy how everything's connected.
Well, it's interesting. LA has a long queer history, but I don't think because of the entertainment industry, it's not really known
Mm,
for that specifically. Given how many queer people work in entertainment, it
yeah,
is really unsurprising to me that there were so many events that happened in Los Angeles specifically. And considering we are, living in Southern California, I find that particular history really interesting because
yeah,
Stonewall took center stage, yet that is not the beginning of our movement. And
right.
I'm sure there were events that took place long before the Black Cat protest as well that were, you know,
Significant. Yeah.
significant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that we bring all of this up is because it really shows that resistance was already happening, right? Like even before Stonewall, resistance was already happening in the queer communities across the country. And it was a moment of both grief and joy, right? Even under attack, people were still gathering and kissing in public and claiming their visibility together, to really show that they weren't going to be brought down, right? Like they weren't going to be silenced. And I really love the note here of the Pride's early slogans being out of the closets and into the streets. And then
Yes.
what was the other thing they said? Some of the signs said about the kissing. Oh my gosh, what was it?
Uh,
Kissing doesn't kill.
yeah, yes,
We'll
yes.
get into it, but I just love that. And you can see that like that the kissing doesn't kill comes up a little bit later here, but it's you can tell that it's clearly connected to this thing, right? Like these riots that happened were because of public acts of kissing, right? So it's all connected. And I just when we get to it, I that slogan, I'm like, I want to write that on things again.
Yeah,
Like
and
people need to have that.
it's really interesting, I think, with everything that's going on today. Now, I just read this morning that a New Jersey candidate for the Senate or something is trying to roll back marriage equality. And that's not
Mm,
the first one I've heard of this week. So
no.
it is interesting that unfortunately, like, I think history kind of does repeat itself, and so it's important to know, like, where these things have happened before and how we can utilize these things again, and a
Yeah.
lot of it was building networks of queer community, and that's so important. But,
Yeah.
Pride started because people were tired of hiding, and it was never meant to be, like, a parade. It was messy, and it was an emotional celebration of survival, and I think capitalism has kind of taken its wings and flown
Yeah.
into the magic rainbows we see today, and we do love the rainbows. I'm not dissing the rainbows here, but but it's true. I think it's not just about like what we can purchase, but it's how we support the community.
Right. I mean, the early Pride events in the 70s through the 80s were community organized and DIY. It was
Mhm.
homemade signs, it was drums that people had. There were no sponsors, right? People were doing this themselves. And sometimes it's good to remember that, especially right now.
And speaking of, I mean, going straight into like activism and what's been happening, there was a lot of activism around the 80s and 90s with the HIV epidemic and AIDS epidemic popping up. Um, Groups like ACT UP did
Mhm.
protests not just as a spectacle, yes, but also through art, through drag. This is where the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence started, is during the AIDS epidemic.
Mhm.
The Kissing Doesn't Kill campaign that you were talking about.
Yes. I love it. It's the signs, the campaign launched and their slogan was kissing doesn't kill, greed and indifference do. And I just love that. I love that. We need to put that on more signs and have
I
that
think
out
a
again.
resurgence
Yeah,
of this movement. Yes.
100%.
And this was originally by the activist Gran Furry. Furry? Yes, I think so.
Mhm,
1989. And he's the one that launched this campaign.
mhm,
And even speaking of ACT UP, I mean, this is why we have the L at the beginning
mhm.
of the LGBT, because lesbian folks were the nurses that were taking care of the AIDS and HIV patients, and they stood up for primarily, but not exclusively, the gay men that were experiencing AIDS.
Yeah, because we had medical professionals that wouldn't do it, right? We had
Right. Well,
medical professionals that refused or
was it
wouldn't go
Reagan?
in.
Was it Reagan at the time? I
I
think it
think
was.
so.
I think it was either Reagan. I'm pretty sure it was Reagan. Now I have to double check it.
Honestly, it
But
wouldn't
the
surprise me.
um, president that denied. Let's see what Google says. And Google
I'd
Ronald
put
Reagan.
Yep. I was gonna say I'd put 20
Yeah.
bucks on Reagan.
So yeah, I know. I was gonna say, I was like, if I'm wrong about this, I'm gonna be surprised. No, but Reagan was president between 1981 and 1989, and his administration later, also at the time, was highly criticized for ignoring and denying the crisis of the
Mhm,
AIDS epidemic. I actually was even watching a Vogue documentary series. I think it's on I want to say it's on Hulu. It's Vogue in the 90s. And in this first episode, they're talking about the impact of the AIDS epidemic, even on the fashion industry, because there were
mm,
so many queer men in fashion at
mhm.
the time.
Yeah,
The editor in chief of Vogue through this whole fundraiser where Seventh in New York went on sale, and all of the proceeds went to funding to support folks during the AIDS epidemic and crisis. So, I mean,
yeah.
there's a long history of even different industries standing up and supporting the queer community when it needs it, which I think is important to note for a lot of reasons. There are people who will stand up.
Yes. Yeah, and the um the campaign also like was showing images that weren't seen at the time, right?
Hmm.
And it was kind of that same idea of like we're going to show our joy and our happiness regardless. So they were showing images of couples kissing and, bright pop art colors and things like that, and it just wasn't really seen at that time with the AIDS pandemic and the panic that was going on around that. And the campaign turned intimacy into activism, right? And it reclaimed joy as a political act. And it reminded the world that joy, visibility, and human connection could be weapons against stigma and silence. And it, along with a lot of other things, right? We had like the die ins and the drag protests of the same era. They all transformed grief into expression, showing that even in times of loss, queer joy is revolutionary, right? And that I feel like we get some of our best art during times of struggle. And I would
Yep.
not be surprised if one of the many things that we later look back on this era we're in right now in the US and talk about is art that comes out of it because we're already starting to see art and expression come out of it. We're starting to see a resurgence of activism music on TikTok especially.
Yes. Mhm.
I'm really loving some of it. Oh my gosh, have you heard the song? Okay, hold on, wait, segue really
Sidebar.
quick. Sidebar really quick, hold on, because I have not been able to get this song out of my head. Wait, is it Kirby? I'm hesitate to say the wrong name. Here she is. Kirby. Oh, I was right. See, I should have just said it. I should trust myself more. I mean, I follow her, so
Well,
I
that's kind
know.
of the motto I think we all need.
Yeah, but it's activism and it's funky.
Oh, I love the funky vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm into it.
Is you for
Oh, send
profit,
that to me.
self for the nation. It's so good. And this is just one example of so many songs that are starting to pop up and different artists that are starting to pop up doing resistance type music because of what we're seeing today. So, anyway, that was a sidebar, but I'm just saying
It's a
that
good one.
we saw
It's
it
a really
there.
good sidebar.
Yeah, so definitely you have to go check her out. There's so many more. I wish I could think of all the artists off the top of my head right now because 'cause they're so good, but
I mean, if you're looking for a good trans artist, I always gotta do Ryan Casada
yes.
because he does a really good job with his protest music. One of my favorite songs from him is actually Protest Song, and
Oh,
it's really
see, there
good.
you go. And then we've even got you're already seeing and, obviously these have been in works for a while, but you're also seeing even some musicals are starting to come
Yep.
out that, like, kind of go to so, like, Clara and I are about to see, the first touring show of Sups, the musical, which became
Cool.
my obsession during the election, right? It was, like, seriously what got me through some of the music in
You have
Sups
to
because
send
I
it
was
to me so I can look at
yes.
it.
It's so good, and they have a marching song because it's all about the suffragette movement,
Oh,
and
I
it
love
doesn't
that.
shy away from the realities of the suffragette movement that a lot of times we gloss over, which is the fact that the white suffragettes really used and abused the black suffragettes to get what they wanted and didn't include them, right? The women
That's quite a trend through history and activism too.
yeah. Yeah, so and I like that the musical doesn't shy away from that and really shows that that's what happened and the struggle between those 2 groups wanting to come to a similar goal, but ultimately not getting similar treatment under that, and yeah, it's such a good musical, and it's got some really powerful songs. My favorite song is Great American Bitch, where they're singing about why men hate them because
That's so funny.
it's so good. So, yeah,
My God, that's hilarious.
so highly recommend. I would love to see, like, a march where people play the music from Subs because I would be down.
They
I'll go out there
probably
and see.
will. I honestly wouldn't put it past anybody to get out there with an old school boom. I want to see an old boombox
Yes!
speaker like the 80s just out there blasting revolutionary hits. It's great. I love
Yeah,
it.
and now we've got the Portland Frogs, right? It was Portland with the frog suits.
Oh yeah, the frog
But
suits.
that has now already so we're gonna see this, I'm telling you right now, this is gonna be something we talk about years from now. Our children, our grandchildren, whatever, are gonna talk about that symbol. I just have a feeling it's gonna be the symbol that they show in history books
Is the
because
frog.
the frog
Do you know what the
that's
symbol
there,
actually means? Because I don't know if I know what the frog actually
I don't know that the frog started as a
means.
specific thing. It was just
Or
like
it's just like that's
I
what
think
it
it was
is
just funny and
now.
it's just turned into something. Yeah, but now it's turned into something. Now it has meaning and they're starting to use it as merch, as like resist merch, showing the one frog
That's
ag-
so cool.
up in front of a bunch of officers. And I'm telling you, it's going to be that is art. That picture, whoever took that photo, art.
I love that.
Amazing. Because it speaks volumes to today's society. Like here we are just trying to live life and be in blow up frog suits, and you've
I
got
mean,
the
who doesn't
police,
want to
like,
be in a blow up frog suit? Any
honestly,
blow up suit sounds fun.
truly, yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Anyway, that was a really long sidebar, but yeah,
But
uh,
activism.
activism.
Not total sidebar. It's in the realm. And I think like that's part of the key too is I think looking at history and seeing where we're at now and there were so much to be said. Um
Mhm.
and knowledge is power.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show you, I mean, even as far back as what the 1920s,
Mhm.
people were using some sort of like artistic outlet for their queerness and to be who they were, right? To express themselves. We had like ballroom culture,
Yes. Mhm.
Harlem, queer nightlife, bars and dance floors have always been sanctuary spaces for queer people where we could kind of express ourselves and exist. And so I think it shows you that like joy has always been how we say, like, "You can't erase us," right? They've really kind of become the face, I think, right now, and I think they're really shifting how we're thinking about this movement, and I think in a good way because they are bringing silliness and joy and fun into this resistance, and I think that's what we really need. I think we really needed Portland. We really needed that attitude, and it's growing like wildfire. People are just loving it, and you're starting to see people in other cities now pop up with the blow up suits. I mean,
Oh, that's I mean,
Riverside,
I love a blow up suit.
my hometown, Riverside, California, which is notoriously red, okay, very conservative, kind of, we think we're country, but we're really not, because whatever.
Out in the IE,
Out in
right?
the IE, right on the edges of the IE, right? Right before you hit the desert. So we're out there. And even Riverside, downtown Riverside, had a protest this last Saturday, the No Kings protests, and tons of people came out. My mom took photos and people were in blow up suits. And I
That's
was
so
like,
funny. Keep being
so
in the blow up suits, folks.
please keep doing it. I just love it. It brings me joy and it brings me happiness. And I think it brings happiness to the people around you. And I think it's really, really important for documentation to show how ridiculous it is that they're like using force against us when we're not. Like, it's a really good way to
Yeah,
visually represent that we're not being like, what is
it's
the right
not
word?
it's nonviolent.
Right.
It's nonviolent.
Yeah.
It's nonviolence being met with
Yeah.
violence.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, me too. And I think this goes to say what we've been saying is joy as rebellion too. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, everybody has to hit the streets. If
Mm-mm.
you can, that's great. If you can't for whatever reason, that's important to note too that, it can show up as a drag show, a
Mhm.
kiss with your partner in public, attending a pride event. Those are the foundations of queer joy,
Mhm.
um, beyond just the protest, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course that brings us into today's pride and the complexity of why can't I talk? I can't say the word. Commercialization
It's
versus
a hard word.
authenticity. It's a big
It's
word
a
for
hard
Elmo.
word. Yeah.
I love that every
That's
time
the
Clara
starting podcast. It's a big word for Elmo.
every time Clara or I will mess up on a word or like say a word and we're like, "Yes, I got it." I'll say that. That's a big word for Elmo.
I love that.
Oh,
I'm going to start using that too. It's going to be our new thing, our
that
new
was one of my
shtick.
favorite TikTok trends ever. Hilarious. So good.
But with that being said, like we've said earlier today, there was that corporate shift with
Mm.
Pride where things were being sold back to us. And it's
Mhm.
interesting too to see how things are working now this year because I noticed that things were pulled off the shelves, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's important when we're talking about supporting the queer community to shop small,
Mhm.
shop queer,
Shop local.
shop local, shop queer shops, shop ethically when you're shopping, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I know it's tough, but
but I do think again when you're looking at and I've been to some of the marches and when you're looking at video footage back from all of them across the nation and not just across the nation but even in other countries, right? Marched with us, some of them, which was amazing. You are kind of seeing a little bit of a resurgence of homemade DIY signs and things like that. And I just really appreciate that. I think that is kind of coming back to the core, right, of how we started.
and I think this is a good segue into like how to create joy in protest,
Mm,
right? We're seeing kind of like this resurgence, I think, of like creative
mm,
projects. Like the more people that I've been talking to have literally said things like, I'm so exhausted, I just want to have time to like sit down and do some art or turning art into action in that way too. But it's okay if you can't digest all of it, but I think doing what you can do to have joy in and of itself is a protest and a celebration.
Yeah, and even things that you do privately, like
Mhm.
lighting a candle, for yourself or for those who came before you, like, just to remember them, right? Or going out and dancing for those who couldn't before, or giving yourself the time to rest, right? Giving yourself that softness and understanding
Or
that sometimes we can't do stuff.
yeah, or like taking a class. Like
Mhm.
there in Los Angeles, there are quite a few like queer run art classes and things like that. I'm sure in Long Beach as well.
Oh, yeah.
But finding space that can also be an act of protest and celebration, photography, music, writing
Mhm.
poems, short stories, long stories, learning about queer history, like listening to this podcast is one of those things. You're supporting two queer women here, um and talking and learning about queer history and a bunch of other things too.
Yeah, just listening to our podcast and maybe liking it or sharing it gets our message out to other people,
Mhm.
right? And so you didn't even have to leave your house if you didn't want to. You could be
Yeah,
laying in bed listening to this, and you've done
crocheting and
something.
listening.
See? You know? Yeah. So, thank you.
That's what
We
I would be
appreciate you.
doing. In closing, I want you all to kind of think about what's one way you can make joy a part of your resistance this week.
Maybe it's dancing to your favorite song with the windows open. Love doing that in the car. I love listening to music with the windows open in my car. It just feels free. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's calling your queer friend and just saying I see you or I love you.
Oh, I love that. I should call all of my friends this week and tell them that. But just remember, joy isn't naive, it's intentional, and it's how we keep going. And I think, if anything, remember we need to be intentional,
Mhm.
especially during this season.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So remember, pride began as a riot, but it's joy that keeps the fire burning.
And that's what we're celebrating, not just the right to exist, but the right to feel joy while we do.
Yay!
Yay!
Keep showing up even when it's messy. We'll see you next time in the closet.